Disney movies are rigged. Every princess is perfectly designed to defeat exactly one specific villain. But what happens when we break that design? What if Ariel had to fight a fire-breathing dragon? What if Rapunzel faced a sorcerer who hunts for eternal youth? We simulated 6 villain swaps, and the results are terrifying. In this version, the happily ever after is cancelled. Let's see who survives. Swap number 1, Ariel versus Maleficent. Ariel's original villain was Ursula, the Sea Witch. And here's the thing about that fight, Ariel barely won. She gave up her voice, almost lost her soul, and needed Prince Eric to drive a ship through Ursula's body to finish the job. It came down to the wire. Now replace Ursula with Maleficent. Maleficent is not a sea witch running a shady deal from an underwater cave. She is the self-proclaimed mistress of all evil. She cursed an entire kingdom because she didn't get invited to a party. She commands an army of goblins. She can teleport. She can shapeshift into a fire-breathing dragon. And her magic? It's not based on contracts or bargains. It's raw, ancient power. Ariel can swim fast and talk to fish. You see the problem. Ariel's biggest weapon against Ursula was her voice, which she literally gave away. Against Maleficent, she wouldn't even get the chance. Maleficent doesn't make deals. She doesn't negotiate. She curses you and walks out of the room. Picture this, Ariel surfaces to find Prince Eric, and instead of a sea witch blocking her path, there's a wall of black thorns covering the entire coastline. The castle is sealed. Eric is cursed into an endless sleep, and standing on the cliff is a woman who can turn into a dragon. Ariel has no legs, no voice, no magic, and no sword. Prince Philip needed the Sword of Truth and a magical shield blessed by 3 fairies just to survive Maleficent. Ariel has a fork she uses to brush her hair. This one is over before it starts. Ariel doesn't just lose, she never even gets close. And the worst part? Maleficent holds grudges forever. She cursed Aurora as a baby, and then waited 16 years just to watch it happen. She's not in a rush. If Ariel somehow escaped to the ocean, Maleficent would send her goblins to every coastline and remember the environment. Maleficent's castle is high on a jagged mountain, surrounded by thorns, miles inland. Ariel is a mermaid. Even if she gets legs, she has to hike up a mountain to fight a dragon. Maleficent doesn't even need to fight. She just has to stay in her castle and wait for Ariel to dry out. She'd curse the tides. She'd burn every ship until there was no one left for Ariel to save. Ursula was dangerous because she was clever. Maleficent is dangerous because she's powerful and patient. That combination is a death sentence for a princess whose best move is swimming away. But here's where it gets interesting. Because the next swap, it goes the complete opposite direction. Swap number 2, Elsa versus Ursula. Remember how we just said Ariel couldn't handle Maleficent? Now watch what happens when a princess is way too powerful for her new villain. Elsa's original enemies were Hans and the Duke of Weselton. Hans was a con man with a sword. The Duke was a paranoid old traitor with 2 bodyguards. Neither of them had any magic at all. Elsa could freeze an entire kingdom by accident. Her enemies were completely outmatched from the start. Now give her Ursula. Ursula is powerful. Sure, she's a sea witch who feeds on stolen voices. She can grow to the size of a building, and she nearly controlled the entire ocean with King Triton's trident. That's a serious threat. But Elsa built an entire ice palace in about 40 seconds. She created a living snowman without even trying. She froze a whole fjord solid in the middle of summer. And in Frozen 2, she tamed the spirit of the ocean itself. Ursula's power comes from deals and manipulation. She tricks people into giving up something precious, then collects when they fail. That's how she got Ariel. But Elsa? Elsa doesn't need anything from Ursula. She's not a lonely teenager desperate to walk on land. She's a queen with elemental powers that can reshape geography. Imagine Ursula rising from the ocean, trident in hand, ready to threaten Arendelle. Elsa raises one hand and freezes the entire harbor around her. The trident, covered in 3 inches of ice. Ursula's tentacles? Stuck to the frozen sea floor. Her army of eels? Frozen solid. This fight lasts about 15 seconds, and Elsa doesn't even need to take off her gloves. Now, could Ursula try the manipulation route? Could she offer Elsa a deal? Maybe. But what would she offer? Elsa's biggest problem was always controlling her own powers and reconnecting with her sister. Ursula can't fix either of those things. She deals in desperation, and Elsa isn't desperate enough to shake hands with a stranger from the ocean. Ursula's entire business model is finding people at their lowest point and offering them something they can't refuse. But Elsa already has a kingdom, a sister who loves her, and enough raw power to reshape a continent. There's no deal to be made, no weakness to exploit, no contract to sign. Some swaps create impossible challenges. Others reveal just how overpowered certain princesses really are. But the next one? The next one is the scariest swap on this list. Because it puts a princess with 0 combat ability against the most psychologically dangerous villain Disney ever created. Swap number 3, Rapunzel versus Jafar. Rapunzel's original villain was Mother Gothel, and Gothel was scary for a very specific reason. She didn't look like a villain, she looked like a loving mother. She used guilt, manipulation, and emotional abuse to keep Rapunzel locked in that tower for 18 years. No army, no magic blasts, just words. Now take Gothel out, put Jafar in. Jafar was the royal vizier of Agrabah. He spent years manipulating the Sultan, studying dark sorcery, and hunting for a magic lamp that would make him the most powerful person alive. Once he got that lamp, he wished himself into the most powerful sorcerer in the world. He moved mountains. He threw people across rooms with a flick of his wrist. He turned himself into a giant snake. And that was before his second wish. Rapunzel's magic hair can heal wounds and reverse aging. That's an incredible power, but it's a defensive power. She can't attack with it. She can't block a fireball with it. And against someone like Jafar, healing doesn't matter if you never get the chance to fight back. Here's the real nightmare. Jafar wouldn't destroy Rapunzel. He'd use her. Think about it. Rapunzel's hair grants eternal youth. That's exactly what Gothel wanted, and Gothel was just a regular woman. Jafar is an obsessive, power-hungry sorcerer who already wished to be the most powerful being alive. If he found out about hair that could keep him young forever, he'd never let her go, ever. Gothel kept Rapunzel in a tower with a locked door. Jafar would keep her in a sealed chamber guarded by dark magic, surrounded by hypnotized soldiers, inside a palace that he controls completely. No tower with a window, no birthday lanterns visible in the sky, no Eugene Fitzherbert charming his way in. Rapunzel's escape only worked because Gothel underestimated her, because Gothel was arrogant and careless. Jafar is neither of those things. He's paranoid, careful, and ruthless. There is one tiny glimmer of hope here. If this is Genie Jafar, he is bound by the rules of the lamp. He can't kill anyone, and he can't make anyone fall in love. But Jafar is a lawyer at heart. He knows how to bend rules. He wouldn't kill Rapunzel. He would just create a magical cage so small she couldn't move, and keep her there for 1,000 years. That technically follows the rules, and it's a fate worse than death. Rapunzel doesn't escape this version of the story, and that might be the darkest outcome on this entire list. But we're not done yet, because the next swap takes a princess with no magic at all and puts her face to face with someone who feeds on the dead. Swap number 4, Belle versus Dr. Facilier. Belle's original villain was Gaston, big guy, strong, obsessed with her. But when you strip away the bluster, Gaston was just a man. He had no magic, no supernatural connections, and his biggest weapon was a mob of scared villagers. Belle outsmarted him because she was smarter than him. Simple as that. Now hand Belle over to Dr. Facilier, the shadow man from The Princess and the Frog. Facilier is a voodoo sorcerer who made deals with dark spirits from the other side. He could read your past, present, and future. He could pull your shadow off the ground and make it fight you. He turned a prince into a frog with a handshake. And his friends on the other side? They're not metaphorical. They are actual shadow demons that drag people into the spirit world when deals go wrong. Belle is a bookworm from a small French village. She has zero preparation for this. Here's what makes this swap so dangerous. Belle's greatest strength is her mind. She reads, she learns, she figures things out. Against Gaston, that was enough. But Facilier's magic doesn't care how smart you are. You can't outsmart a shadow that's already standing behind you. Facilier's whole method is charm. He's smooth, friendly, and convincing. He makes you think you're getting exactly what you want. And Belle wants adventure. She wants more than her small-town life. That's literally her opening song. Facilier would use that desire like a key to unlock every door in her mind. You want to see the world, dear? Let me show you something beyond your wildest imagination. One handshake later, Belle is trapped in a deal she doesn't understand, surrounded by forces she can't fight with a library card. Tiana only beat Facilier because she understood what he was offering and chose to reject it. She grew up around those stories. She knew the warning signs. Belle grew up in rural France, reading fairy tales. She wouldn't see it coming until it was far too late. Now, let's move to a swap that flips everything on its head. Because the next princess, she's the only one on this list who might actually do better with her new villain. Swap number 5, Mulan versus Gaston. After 4 swaps where the princesses were outmatched or trapped, this one hits different, because Mulan might actually crush this. Mulan's original villain was Shan Yu, the leader of the Hun army. This man invaded China with thousands of soldiers. He survived being buried in an avalanche. He punched through a roof. He was a living weapon, powered by pure rage and military genius. Mulan still beat him. She caused the avalanche herself, outsmarted his army, and finished the fight on the roof of the emperor's palace using a fan and a firework. Now replace Shan Yu with Gaston. Gaston is strong. He's roughly the size of a barge. He eats 5 dozen eggs every morning. And yes, he's a skilled hunter. But let's be honest here. Gaston lost a fight to a guy who had been a beast for 10 years and didn't even use weapons. Beast pinned him on a rooftop and let him go, and Gaston still couldn't win. He literally fell off a castle. Mulan took down an entire army with 1 rocket. She defeated the most dangerous military leader in Chinese history by disarming him with a paper fan and blowing him up with a firework. She trained alongside soldiers for months, mastered sword fighting, and climbed a pole that nobody else could climb, carrying 2 bronze weights. Gaston's biggest achievement is winning a bar decorating contest. This isn't a fight. This is a Tuesday for Mulan. Gaston tries to lead a mob. Mulan has commanded actual soldiers in actual war. Gaston picks up a boulder. Mulan dodges arrows for a living. Gaston tries to charm her. Mulan pretended to be a man for months and fooled an entire army. She's not falling for it. Actually, let's talk about that man aspect. Gaston's entire identity is being the manliest man in town. He sings about it. He flexes about it. But Mulan, disguised as Ping, was actually tougher than him. She survived an avalanche. She carried weights up a pole while singing. Ping is the man Gaston pretends to be. If they met, Gaston wouldn't just be beaten physically. His entire ego would shatter because a small soldier outperformed him in every single manly metric. This swap proves something important. Not every villain upgrade makes things harder. Sometimes the princess was already fighting way above her weight class, and the new villain is a downgrade. But don't get too comfortable, because our last swap, it's the one that changes everything, and it puts the most innocent princess on this list against a villain who literally controls the dead. Swap number 6, Cinderella versus Hades. Cinderella's original villain was Lady Tremaine, her wicked stepmother. Tremaine was cruel, cold, and calculating. She locked Cinderella in her room, destroyed her dress, and tried to stop her from trying on the glass slipper. But at the end of the day, she was a bitter old woman with no powers. Just cruelty and a house key. Now put Cinderella against Hades, the god of the underworld from Hercules. Hades is a literal god. He rules the land of the dead. He controls an army of souls. He can summon fire from his fingertips, make binding magical contracts, and he nearly overthrew Mount Olympus by releasing the Titans. It took Hercules, a demigod, with the strength to move planets to stop him, and even then Hades survived. Because you can't kill a god, you can only trap him, and Cinderella doesn't have a magic prison. Cinderella's biggest weapon is a glass shoe and a good attitude. She is in serious trouble. But wait, here's where it gets fascinating. Hades' weakness isn't strength, it's patience. He's impulsive. He loses his temper constantly. His own minions, Pain and Panic, fail him over and over because he can't keep his cool long enough to manage them. His entire plan to overthrow Zeus fell apart because he got emotional and made bad decisions in the final moments. And what is Cinderella's greatest power? Patience, endurance, the ability to survive years of abuse without breaking, to keep going when everything is taken from her, to smile when the world gives her nothing. Cinderella can't fight Hades, that's obvious, but she wouldn't need to. She'd just need to survive long enough for him to self-destruct. And if Disney history teaches us anything, it's that Hades always self-destructs. His temper is his downfall every single time. Cinderella wouldn't beat Hades in battle, but she might outlast him. She's spent her whole life waiting for things to get better. She knows how to endure, and sometimes, endurance beats power. There's also something else. Hades makes deals. That's his thing. And Cinderella, she's the one princess on this list who would never take the deal. She wouldn't trade her soul for a palace. She wouldn't sell out her friends for a shortcut. She'd just keep scrubbing floors and waiting for midnight, because that's what she's always done. And eventually, Hades would get bored. He'd get frustrated. He'd throw a tantrum, melt his own throne, and move on to someone easier to break. Because Cinderella can't be broken. Lady Tremaine tried for years. It didn't work. The princess with nothing might just survive the god of death, and that's the most Disney ending possible. It's the unstoppable force meeting the immovable object. Hades is the explosion. Cinderella is the wall. Closing, what this tells us. When you look at the data, the pattern is undeniable. So what did we learn from swapping every villain? Ariel gets destroyed by Maleficent because her skills were built for a very specific enemy. Elsa absolutely dominates Ursula because her powers were always overkill for the threats she faced. Rapunzel gets permanently trapped by Jafar because her escape only worked against a careless villain. Belle gets manipulated by Facilier because her curiosity becomes a weakness. Mulan wipes the floor with Gaston because she was already fighting someone 10 times more dangerous. And Cinderella might just outlast a literal god through pure patience. Every Disney princess was designed to win her story. Her skills, her heart, her personality, they all point toward one specific victory against one specific villain. But change the villain, and the whole story falls apart. Or in some cases, gets way better. That's what makes these movies so well crafted. The villain isn't just an obstacle. The villain is the reason the princess exists the way she does. Ursula made Ariel sacrifice her voice because that tested what Ariel valued most. Gothel isolated Rapunzel because that tested her courage to step outside. Gaston threatened Belle because he tested whether she'd give up her independence. The villain shapes the princess, and the princess is shaped to beat that villain, nobody else, just that one. Swap them around, and you see just how perfectly each story was designed. Like a lock and key, each princess is the only key that fits her lock. Ariel needed a villain who would tempt her with legs. Belle needed a villain who would test her values. Mulan needed a villain who would push her past every physical limit. These weren't random choices. Disney picked every villain to create the exact challenge that would force each princess to become who she was meant to be. Swap them around, and you see just how perfectly each story was designed. Like a lock and key, each princess is the only key that fits her lock. And now that you've seen what happens when the keys get mixed up, you'll never watch these movies the same way again.